What about ye? 2014 Audi 2-litre TDI. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the cooling system in these engines. And this is going to be the advice that I give all my customers with Volkswagen Group TDI engines and how it could save them a ton of money and a lot of hassle. So this particular engine in this car has this expansion bottle, and as we can see, there's a couple of German words written on it there. Mit Silica, and that basically translated from German basically means with silica. So what that means is there is an additional bag of silica in this expansion bottle. Now I've already taken it out so that I can show you what it looks like and show you what to look for. What I tell customers, and I'd strongly advise them, is you remove that silica bag. So there it is. There is the silica bag that was inside this bottle. So where it usually sits is into the right hand side, so it's sort of in there. If you look in, you can see you can see this is the level sensor, and you see two wee prongs, but in there, into the right hand side, you can see the corners of this wee bag here, and this is full of silica gel. So with a hook tool and a pair of long nose pliers, you can get this bag out of here. Now, it is quite sort of rigid. It's like a nylon bag there. So yeah, with the silica granules in it. So what they're doing here, as you saw on the bottle, it said G13. So the G13 coolant that's in these cars is an environmentally friendly, low emissions coolant, and there isn't enough silica in it. So this is a silica additive that they've put into the reservoir there. So yeah, you can see it. This has been out a wee while and it's dried off now. So obviously when you pull this out, it'll be all wet, and you can just about get it out from the hole there without having to disconnect any hoses or anything, So yeah, obviously you want to, if you're going to do that, you want to take care. You don't want to rip this. If you find that this bag has punctured, and we have had occasions where we've found that this bag is split, and these silica granules mix in with the coolant and they dissolve in the coolant. And why we want to remove this bag is that if that silica gets in with the coolant and mixes in with the coolant, and the bag is split, that basically blocks up the coolant system, and you have a hell of a problem getting that flushed out. And it's a real pain. So much so, Volkswagen Group actually sell a flushing machine for that very purpose, for this very problem. So okay, why do I have additional silica in it in the first place? As I said, it's because the G13 is an environmentally friendly coolant which doesn't have enough silica in it. So they put this additive into it to help that, and there are other reasons as well. So this particular engine is a CRB engine there. So water pump is driven from the timing belt, and I'll just get that engine cover out of the way there. And what we can see over here in the top corner, we'll get another wee look at it, is there's an awful lot of aluminium about this engine. This particular engine has a massive big block of aluminium as the intake manifold, and that's cooled with all these coolant pipes. So it's a very elaborate cooling system in this particular engine. There is the mechanical water pump that is driven off the timing belt, and there is also an additional 2 electric pumps. Now, I've done a video in the past where I've shown the schematic of that system and the complexity of it and all that there. So the idea is it gets up the temperature very quickly. There are other factors. There is an electric heater in it as well, which I'm going to show you. And we'll talk a wee bit more about the coolant system. This vehicle here has a switchable water pump, and we'll show you how you can identify that. So having a wee look around this engine bay, you can sort of tell what you have without having to look up engine codes or anything like that. So these engines that tend to have a lot of aluminium components about them tend to have the G13 with the additional silica bag. Now, I'm saying to remove that silica bag because, as I said, there is a serious risk of that bag deteriorating and splitting, and that basically blocks the coolant system up. And the first sign of that usually is the heater matrix in the cabin. You get no heat from it, and we're going to talk a wee bit more about that as well. But the first sign of that is no heat in the cabin, heater matrix is blocked. And if you go ahead and just change the heater matrix, put a new heater matrix in it, it's going to block up again. If this bag here is split and your coolant system is contaminated. So G13, I'm basically going to read a comment that I made on a previous video, and I have it here. G13 is a glycerin based made from biodiesel, environmentally friendly. The traditional G12 is ethylene glycol. The G13 has silica additives in it to prevent corrosion to aluminium radiators, etc. And I wrote there, my understanding is additional silica bag if the car has extensive aluminium, i.e. intakes, etc. G12 and G13 are miscible, but the long life aspect and corrosion protection are reduced. So what I'm saying there is if you revert the G12 and put G12 in this, it's not as long lasting and clearly not environmentally friendly and emissions friendly as the G13. But you know, the idea of the G13 is it is a long life product. However, the additional silica bag that they use to put actually additional silica into it causes serious issues with the cooling system if that bag bursts. So I go on to say here, if you revert back to G12, you will need to change the coolant more often. And I commented, that comment was on I think it was a video where I was doing a switchable water pump, which I'm going to talk a wee bit more here in this video. And I said this car has G13 but no silica bag, for example, but I'm happy to fill it with G12. And that was a response to Russell Duncan, who works in a lot of VAGs, and he was asking, with regards to removing the bag, have you any idea whether it might be advisable to switch to G12 coolant after removing the silica? I wondered if there's something in the G12 that has been removed from the G13 for environmental reasons, and that might be the reason for the bag of silica being required. So I just took a screenshot of that comment there that I made on a video there, 10 months ago. So that was Russell Duncan, and that was my reply. And we'll just get that out of the way, and as you notice, every time I'm going to handle that silica bag, I put gloves on, because silica is poisonous. Coolant is poisonous in itself, but you get that stuff in your fingernails, and you know, it's really nasty. Now, just to clarify, if it does not say mint silicate on the bottle, you probably, and I would go as far to say you will not have this tea bag thing inside this bottle. So it's only if you have that writing on it, but you could well have G13 in it. So as long as that bag isn't in it, then you're okay. G13, just keep the G13 in it and you're grand. So you can have G13 with no additional bag, that can be the case. I've seen that loads of times as well. But if you see this badge here, MIT Silicant, written on this expansion bottle, my advice is to very gingerly take this bag out. I was going to say pull this bag out, but take the bag out, extract it from through the top hole there, and as you can see, it's perforated. It's like a big tea bag. So I'm okay with running this car with the G13 on it, and as you can see, it needs a bit of a top up. I will be topping this up with G12 because the G12 and the G13 are miscible, which is a fancy word which just means mixable. Of course, this is not what Volkswagen Group tell you to do. This is just my opinion. Now, you know, you can change this back to G12 if you want, and of course you can keep that bag in it if you wish, if it's your preference. However, my logic in all this is that the consequences of this system failing are, you know, a lot less with this bag not there, you know. So keeping the G13, I'm quite happy to do that. It's a perfectly plausible question from Russell there, of course. Should we keep the G13? Should we revert back to G12 when we do remove the bag? That's your preference, basically. I think at the end of the day, I'm okay with keeping the G13 in it. But what I'm doing here is weighing up the risk of, you know, severe, expensive repairs over, you know, keeping that thing in there, knowing that it gives these serious problems. So, you know, weigh it up between having a real disaster on your hands of this cooling system and just running it with a G13. It's, again, it's sort of up to yourself. I'm just telling you what I think. I've also done a few videos on the channel there, and you can look through the channel list if you want. This is a switchable water pump, and yes, it creates a lot of questions and comments about the cooling system in this. And this is the dreaded switchable water pump that the water pump spins. It's driven off the back of the timing belt, so there's no teeth there, but it's off the flat side of the timing belt. And this sleeve then goes over the impeller and prevents, it basically switches the pump off. Now it still spins, it still rotates off the timing belt, but because this sleeve is over the impeller, it does not force the coolant around it. Now, because this is quite a complicated cooling system, and as I said, it has two electric pumps as well. You know, an overheat condition doesn't really manifest itself, and the typical symptom of this sleeve sticking, which this just sticks firmly. I've freed this sleeve up, but this was a failed unit. So when I got this at first, this thing was jammed solid, so it was, and it took a lot of WD-40 and a lot of putting air pressure in there to get this thing to chooch and free up. So it works now all right, but there's no way that I'm going to put that in the car. But anyway, the symptom of this sleeve sticking is that when you're driving along the motorway, when you're in sort of cruise mode and you're driving at like 70 miles an hour, the temperature gauge raises way up and goes way up, and you get an overheat condition. It goes above the normal sort of 12 o'clock or 90 degree centigrade normal sort of temperature condition. So how can I tell, how can you tell, how can anybody tell that they have one of these switchable water pumps in this car? Now this particular one, there's a piece missing here because it's swapped over onto the original car that this came off. It's not off this car. And this particular one, there's a multi-plug, a wire connector goes onto here, which actuates this, and that goes off the back and is underneath the inlet manifold. In this particular car, the car that this pump came off, it had a plastic, normal sort of style inlet manifold there, and not this big elaborate aluminium thing. But in this, because this is a 2 litre, we can tell very, very easily if this has a switchable water pump, this engine here. If we look to the rear of the timing belt cover, so that's the timing belt cover there. If we look to the rear of that, we see this brown plug, and that is the connection for the switchable water pump, which is in here. So if you see that brown plug, you know you've got a switchable water pump in this thing. And that's it, just a different angle there. That's it in there underneath this. There's the diesel return pipe here, or one of them, and there's that brown plug there. So that's your timing belt casing. So the timing belt sits down in here, or the water pump will sit around this area here, down in there, and that's the connection to it that makes that sleeve go in and out. Okay, moving on, and I'm going to talk about the opposite condition, not an overheat condition, and these are comments and questions that come from some of the thermostat videos that I have already shown on the channel. And this is a bit of information which comes from Volkswagen Audi themselves, and this pertains to if you have the condition where the car heats up, the temperature seems to get up the temperature okay, or it seems to take a long time to get up the temperature, and then when the people are driving along, or they go down a hill or whatever, or they're just traveling along fairly slowly, and it's a cold day, the temperature gauge actually drops off and sort of fluctuates and moves about. Now, this could be quite important. Most people would say, oh, you have a faulty thermostat. Your thermostat's stuck open, and the engine in the car can't regulate the temperature and keep it stable. Well, this is a piece of information which is, in my opinion, like gold dust if you own one of these TDI engines. And here it is. I'm going to share it with you here because I don't think it's really that readily available, this information. And here we are, and we'll try and get it in the shot for you. So here we go. Customer complaint: coolant fluctuates between 50 and 90 degrees centigrade. There we go. Technical product information. And engine temperature display fluctuates between 50 and 90 degrees centigrade, all TDIs. So customer statement is at outside temperatures under 5 degrees centigrade. So I'm getting asked this because it is winter time, and some parts of the United Kingdom have sub-zero temperatures at the minute, and certainly it rarely gets above anywhere near the 5 degrees. So people are seeing this, and I'm being asked about this. So this is the reason why I'm doing this video. At outside temperatures under 5 degrees centigrade, the engine temperature fluctuates according to the display in the dash between 50 and 70 degrees centigrade, or till the coolant temperature reaches 90 degrees centigrade. The phenomenon occurs mainly when driving at low engine speed. So here we go. Technical background. Because the engine's brilliant in a low rev range, little engine heat is passed on to the coolant. At low outside temperatures, the coolant temperature does not reach 90 degrees centigrade. If the heating is used, so that's the heating in the cabin, the coolant loses further heat depending on the blower level. So if you have the blower on full blast, the demist the windows or whatever, it just saps the heat out of the coolant. So the heater matrix then acts as a radiator. Well, it is a radiator, so it cools it down. So as a result, the coolant temperature can fluctuate between 50 and 90 degrees. And here's the thing. Let me see. Okay, measure. Do not repair. This is normal. Warranty accounting is not permitted. Warranty claims will not be redebited if you put a thermostat in that engine. So there we go. This is normal, right? So I'm going to talk a wee bit more about what this paragraph means, and I'm going to show you something else as well. So below an outside temperature of 5 degrees centigrade and a coolant temperature of 70 degrees centigrade, the standard PTC auxiliary heater is activated to heat the interior. The best effectiveness of the PTC auxiliary heater is achieved when the temperature is on 22 degrees and the air conditioning is on auto. It is important that the adjustment of the auxiliary heater in the MMI, that's multimedia interface, you know that the thing that pops up out of the dashboard, and you know you have a dial that turns the radio and stuff, changes the channels, is on auto. So you have that on auto in the multimedia interface, and this PTC positive temperature coefficient auxiliary heater then comes on and actually heats the cabin. So we'll just show you what this auxiliary heater looks like and what it is and what it does. And before I do that, there's just one wee final thing here. A low coolant temperature has no effect on the service life of the engine. An engine oil with suitable viscosity is used. So they're saying there that has no ill effect at all. So if the ambient temperature is below 5 degrees, your coolant temperature will fluctuate, and that is normal. So a PTC auxiliary heater, what is that? And probably most people don't even realize that they have one. And well, there's it there. That's out of this car. So there's going to be a video on this thing here. So what this is basically an electric heater. So there's a few connections in there, and that's the air stud for it. And that is basically a 1 kilowatt bar heater that is heated from the battery. Now this only comes on under certain conditions. You know, the voltage has to be good, start stop has to be off, it has to be, I think it's under 6 degrees, stuff like that, and it has to be switched on in the multimedia interface. So what this thing does is when the car is cold and you know the coolant isn't hot and you're calling in the cabin for to demist your windows or something like that, it'll turn this on, so you get warm air basically coming out of your vents. So this sits behind the normal heater matrix. So if you imagine the normal heater matrix sits here in front of us where my hand is, and this sits behind it, and you know the air flows through it and through this here as well. So in addition, that is in addition to an electric water pump, which then pumps the engine coolant through the heater matrix in the cabin, independently from the main water pump, which is this thing, and that's in the engine. So it also has another water pump, by the way, that pumps coolant through the intercooler. So there's a lot going on here with these coolant systems in these TDIs, in these modern TDIs. As I said at the start of the video, this is a 2014 model year car. This example here, and I'm just using these components just to show what's going on here. That maybe a lot of people don't realize that, you know, maybe they don't realize they even have this, and you know, actually what is going on. So hopefully that answers a lot of questions. It's not just questions that I get in the comments in the videos. It's the customers, my customers ask me these questions and what's going on, and especially the one with the you know, the temperature gauge going down on them and stuff, and they think there's something wrong here in the thermostat or whatever, and I show them that document and tell them that that is normal, and they go away more than happy because I've saved them a load of money and I've saved them changing parts unnecessarily. And you know, I like to consider myself to be one of the more honest people that are out there, and that's why I'm sharing this information with you. It's not a repair video, but hopefully it saves you from doing unnecessary repairs. That's the idea of this video. So anywho, I hope that doesn't raise a whole lot more questions, because that's all I can really tell you on it, and I don't really have any more than that. If I did, I would add it on into this, but nevertheless, I hope maybe you got something out of this. Hope it helped, hope it answered a few questions, and yeah, take that Silica bag out, and all the best, and
Bye. High five.